Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Competitive League of Legends is finally back underway in the West. Today, the LEC did kick off. I'm recording this video right now where the Fnatic and Vitality game is about to start. It's already been a really cool first day of the LEC. So many players, teams, storylines, everything to be excited for. LCS is going to be kicking off next week. It's great. It's awesome. I'm so excited. But today, that's not exactly what we're going to be talking about. You can see up on the screen here, we're going to be talking about the LCS, we're going to be talking about TSM, and we're going to be talking about the Reggie drama once again. This is Leader Grieve. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce this guy's at, but this is Mikhail Klementov. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but this guy, he's a hilarious follow on Twitter. I actually think he's a really good reporter or investigator, whatever. I think he does some really good work as a writer, and I love, seeing what he's going to put out next. But he's actually been a really big part of this whole kind of TSM drama investigation, whatever, this whole Reggie situation for quite a while right now, for quite a while now, and he is definitely a guy with a lot of knowledge on these situations. And he tweeted out yesterday this: Riot says the tip line it promised after its investigation into bullying at TSM will be expanded to serve all employees at orgs in the LCS. And hey, on the surface level, that's great. And this is honestly something that probably should have been in place because, yes, has TSM allegedly been doing some weird stuff, and if they probably needed something like this in place, yeah, but that doesn't mean that things aren't going on at other orgs or couldn't possibly be going on at other orgs. And when we hear about the stuff that has not only happened within TSM allegedly or potentially or whatever, but also the stuff that has happened at Riot themselves, you can see that this stuff is all over the place. And yes, there should absolutely be hotlines or tip lines or resources for employees and the people involved in these situations to avoid some of this from going on, or just for having a safe and effective outlet for when this stuff does happen. Now, hey, as he goes on to say, the bad news here is that the tip line promised to TSM employees hasn't existed for a quarter of Andy Din's, this is Reggie, whatever, for his probation. For a quarter of that probation, this tip line has not been a thing. I don't know if that means it's still not a thing, if it's about to be a thing. I'm assuming we're a quarter of the way through his probation or whatever. So this is obviously very alarming because Riot, with their investigation, whatever, they deemed it necessary or an overall positive or good thing or whatever to have this tip line in place. So if some of these things do happen or continue to happen, if they already were happening or whatever, that they will know about them and know that maybe Reggie's breaching his probation or whatever, but also know that more changes and more restrictions and more things need to be put in place at TSM. But also, if they don't hear from this tip line, then they can be confident in saying that, hey, these things are no longer going on. This isn't something to worry about. We can see things are getting better, positive changes, whatever, or they never were happening and they're still not. But if you promise you're going to put in this tip line in place, and you say this is one of the things that we're going to have, and you say that this is a solution to the problem, potential problems, or whatever, and it's not even happening, that's a huge red flag. That's pretty horrible. That's pretty terrible. Somebody, probably multiple people, massively dropped the ball. And what the heck is going on? What are we doing here? Why did we have this whole investigation? Why are we doing all these bells and whistles? Why are we pretending there's some punishment or things being implemented at TSM being put in place? Shame on, whoever, Riot, the LCS, whoever was supposed to be implementing these things, but also shame on the people at TSM who, are trying to make a better environment and stuff as well. And they're obviously, it seems like, played no part in, reminding somebody these things need to be in place or helping getting these things put in place or whatever as well. Overall, just a really shitty situation. This was very disappointing to hear. I still don't necessarily understand how this all could have happened. He does say, in December, I heard from a TSM employee who casually remarked that the tip line didn't appear to be in place. Today, Riot shared that the following discussion with the LCSPA, we collectively decided to expand the tip line to all LCS players and staff. And again, expanding it, you're expanding something that was not even in place. And yeah, if I'm the LCSPA or, some kind of body people, this should be a huge thing. This should not be acceptable. This should not even be possible. So in this article, going over just everything, July 2022, the LCS announced the results of its investigation. The findings declare that there was a pattern and practice of disparaging and bullying behavior exhibited by Reggie. He was placed on 2-year probation and hit with a $75,000 fine, which was touted for its severity. The figure's 3 times the maximum fine for misconduct by an LCS member. But in the 6 months since, the developer, Riot, and esports league operators have failed to follow through on one of the enforcement mechanisms outlined in the ruling, the implementation of this tip line. In a statement to the Washington Post, Jen Neal, head of North American esports communication at Riot, wrote that the scope of the tip line had expanded since the ruling was issued following the conversations with the LCSPA. LCSPA was the body that first fielded complaints about DIN, before referring the matter to Riot on November 12th of 2021. After discussion with the LCSPA, we collectively decided to expand the tip line to all LCS players and staff. The tip line will provide native language reporting for all players so that players and staff can converse either by phone, email, or through an app. So that's awesome. I do think it's great, and I do think that should be a thing in the language they feel most comfortable. It will provide both anonymous and identified reporting. We are currently interviewing service providers. The tip line announced as part of the ruling in July was to ensure that Riot would find out if DIN had violated LCS rules during his probation. So again, if anything has happened in the last 6 months, or if something bad has gone on at TSM that should have been reported or somebody would want to report or whatever, it sounds like they haven't even had the options to safely or reliably do so, which is terrible. What is this probation if there's no way to even keep track of it or know what the heck's going on outside of, somebody having to take further measures and maybe, risking their job, their career, their whatever to report some of these things? This is bad. This is not good. This puts a giant asterisk on this whole situation, on all the penalties and everything that have already been put in place. So yes, this tip line, it was announced, operated by the independent monitor. The tip line would empower all the TSM employees. So again, what has this independent monitor been doing this whole time? I have so many questions. This seems like this was The ball was dropped on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 levels. So many different people, so many different entities. It doesn't make sense. It really seems hard to believe. Including those not on the esports side of business to report potential violations. TSM would also be required to notify all current and incoming employees about how to access the tip line. Again, so for the past 6 months, how has TSM been notifying all current and incoming employees about how to access this tip line that doesn't exist or hasn't been in place? And explain why it was put in place. Okay, explain why it was put in place when it's not put in place. What has TSM been doing? And what have all the people at TSM been doing? I don't want to keep harping on stuff like this, but, you have Dominic who comes in and he wants to change the culture and we're not going to be like we were before. I have no tolerance for the things that were happening before, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it seems like you haven't really made that much of an effort to make even changes that are supposed to be imposed as a penalty. So what else are you doing or not doing? Oh my gosh, this is so frustrating. This is so hard. And like I said, just disappointing to hear that this is what was happening. If this, if this is all true, if this writer is correct on all of these things, but he does have a pretty good track record so far. TSM and DIN have committed themselves to a culture shift within the organization. We want to provide space for that positive shift to occur. However, we also want to ensure that should that shift not occur, the consequences within the Riot ecosystem are clear. And again, it's not true if that's not happening. The 6-month gap since the ruling was handed down represents a quarter of DIN's probationary period. In that time, TSM has undergone several rounds of layoffs and departure of a handful of VP level executives. The culture of fear, whatever that they allegedly have going on at TSM or had going on at TSM. After the news of the LCS investigation, DIN was first reported in January 2022. Efforts were made within TSM to implement an internal tip line using an anonymous reporting service such as All Voices. But when Riot released their ruling, work on the internal tip line was halted to make way for Riot's tip line. Before the ruling was issued, the organization also sought out executive coaching for Reggie. In a statement, TSM spokesperson Jillian Sheldon said the organization has been responsive to Riot's requests throughout the process. Not only have we openly shared our findings, we've consistently updated Riot on internal compliance. Andy has completed sensitivity training and executive coaching. As for the tip line, Riot is to provide us one to implement. To date, they have not provided it to us, and we're waiting for the next steps from them. So, that pretty much confirms from TSM themselves that this thing hasn't been implemented, and it's January of 2023 at this point. So that is pretty crazy. And again, from TSM side, they're at least claiming that, hey, we've been responsive to Riot on trying to implement this thing. Who knows exactly how true or not true or whatever that is, but hey, I guess we need to take them for their word. So ultimately, TSM is kind of pointing the finger at Riot, saying they're massively dropping the ball. I would still argue if TSM really does care about this and they really believe in this, that I'm sure they could have done more to make sure this thing was put in place. But Riot, the LCS, whoever's involved, what the heck is going on here? What the heck are you doing? How long are you planning on waiting for this thing? So weird, so frustrating. Another day in esports, and once again, every day at TSM is a banger. But that's pretty much it for this video today, guys. I don't know. I'm excited for the LCS to start, but stories like this always just kind of bring my mood down a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I'll catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.